I've always lived in the shadow of my older brother. I'm not bitter about it, but it's just been the truth. He's got a successful business, and I've been trying to replicate that for the better part of 6 years now. I recently moved back in with my parents to try and find some footing. Going back home definitely felt like a step backward, but I didn't have many options. I was staying in the basement to keep out of their way as much as I could. It wasn't too bad down there. It was almost like a mini apartment. The basement had its own little kitchen, bathroom, office, bedroom, and even a TV with my old video games. With all that, I rarely went upstairs. I could pretty much live down there on my own, and it kept me from feeling like a total burden. One night, it was either Friday or Saturday, there was a pretty nasty storm blustering outside. Rain was hammering against the windows, and the wind was strong enough to rattle the whole house. I can't overstate the intensity of it. It was one of the wildest storms I had ever seen at that point. My parents were out of town for the weekend, so I had the place to myself, which was fine by me. I remember it being extra cozy down there that night. I love listening to a raging storm from the comfort of a warm bed, especially when it's late at night. There's something about hunkering down inside during a chaotic storm that really eases my mind. I was about to fall asleep to the soothing pattering of rain when the power suddenly went out. Everything clicked off at once, and I was left in total darkness. I groaned, annoyed at the inconvenience. I figured the storm must have knocked out the power, and for a second I thought about going to check the breaker, but I didn't feel like dealing with it. Not with the storm raging outside. Besides, I was about to go to bed anyway, and I didn't really know where the breaker was to begin with. I figured I'd just wait it out and deal with it in the morning. As I lay there, trying to get comfortable again, I heard something. A loud, unnatural thud against one of the basement windows. It sounded heavy, like something had hit it hard. My first thought was that maybe a branch had come loose in the wind or a tree had fallen, but the sound was sharp and deliberate, not like anything I'd heard before. As lazy as I wanted to be, I couldn't ignore a fallen tree. That was a bit of a step up from a simple power outage. Reluctantly, I got out of bed and grabbed my phone, using the flashlight to make my way over to the window. The basement was pitch black, and the only sounds were the rain pelting the glass and the low rumble of the thunder outside. I remember rubbing fuzzies out of my eyes to try and wake myself up a little bit. I held my phone up to the window, squinting through the glass, and nearly died from my heart stopping right there. There was a man's face pressed up against the window, and he was staring in at me. His eyes were wide, his skin pale and drenched, and for a split second, he made direct eye contact with me. As soon as he saw me looking, he moved away from the window. I stumbled back, almost dropping my phone in shock. What the f*** had I just seen? I felt my heart starting to race. I could barely breathe, but I didn't have much time to process it because a few seconds later, I started hearing another sound, the sound of footsteps. I listened closely. The floorboards above my head were creaking gently. There were people in the house. Between what I had just seen and what I was hearing, I was on the verge of losing it. I was home alone and my house was literally getting broken into. On top of everything, one of them knew I was in the basement. I couldn't think clearly with how severe the situation was. Everything was happening so fast, but I had no choice but to act. I quickly checked my phone, ready to call the police, but then I remembered that power outage had knocked out the Wi-Fi, and with no cell service in the basement, I was trapped down there, totally cut off. I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for these people to do whatever they'd come to do. I tried to calm myself, thinking through my options. I couldn't let those strangers just roam around my house, but I definitely didn't want to confront them head on. I was literally stuck in a lose-lose situation. I decided I'd try to sneak upstairs, skip out the front door quietly, and then call the police once I was outside. I didn't have another choice. Keeping my footsteps as quiet as possible, I made my way up to the basement stairs. I still remember the pure fear of that moment. You never know how your body's going to react to something traumatic until it happens. When I reached the top, I peered around the stairwell. My heart sank because I saw 3 figures with flashlights moving around my pitch black house. I watched them for a few seconds, literally petrified. One of their flashlights panned across their body just long enough for me to make out what one of them was carrying. It was a gun. I froze. Every muscle in my body was tense. I didn't move. I just watched as they murmured to each other in low voices. That's when I heard one of them say something that escalated the situation even further, if that was even possible. In a calm, almost casual voice, one of them said, "Alex is in the basement, go find him." I can't describe the terror I was feeling. How the fuck did he know my name? I backed down the stairs as quietly as I could, trying to keep my breathing steady, but inside, I was losing my shit entirely. I knew I didn't have much time. They were coming for me, and I had no idea what was going to happen once they found me. I looked around frantically, considering potential hiding spots. There wasn't time. I needed to get the hell out of there in the next minute, or I was going to die. The only possible way out was through one of the basement windows, but they were all sealed from the inside. I had no other choice. I grabbed a nearby stool, climbed up one of the window wells, and smashed the glass with my elbow. Shards of glass flew everywhere, but I didn't care. I scrambled through the broken window, pulling myself out into the rain. I felt the cuts all over my body, but I didn't have time to register the pain with the adrenaline and fear coursing through my veins. The downpour soaked me instantly, and I ran through the mud, trying not to slip. Once I was a safe distance from the house, I finally got a signal and called the police. I remember my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. By the time the police searched the house, whoever had been in there was long gone. So much stuff had been stolen, I'm not even going to bother listing everything that was taken. The power outage had been intentional, no surprise there. My parents were livid and threatened to kick me out of the house. I basically had to beg them not to, insisting that there was nothing else I could have done. They eventually calmed down, but I'm still pretty shaken by the whole ordeal. I still have no idea who those people were or how they knew my name. I hate thinking about what might have happened had they found me.